Welcome to the deep dive. You know, there's this deep, almost primal human curiosity about altering our perceptions, isn't there? We seem drawn to exploring the edges of consciousness, maybe looking for insights or sometimes just a different view.
Right, pushing boundaries.
But what happens when that exploration goes wrong? When it doesn't lead to some kind of enlightenment, but instead throws you into a completely private nightmare.
Yeah.
So today we're sharing some really unsettling stories, accounts of what people call bad trips. And these aren't just, uncomfortable moments. They're profound, often terrifying journeys deep into the mind, experiences that can leave real lasting marks.
Exactly. And we've gathered several firsthand accounts. People were incredibly generous, actually, sharing some truly harrowing experiences with different substances.
So what's the goal here?
Well, our mission really is to try and unpack what happens when these journeys go catastrophically wrong, to see if there are common threads in these frightening stories, and maybe figure out what lessons we can learn about the sheer power and, frankly, the peril of our own minds.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's begin with one that really feels like a descent into a personal hell, like a kind of cosmic horror story playing out inside someone's head.
Okay.
This comes from someone who was actually experienced with Amanita Muscaria, the mushroom.
Right, the red one with white spots, typically?
That's the one. They'd had pleasant, sort of mild trips before, but this time they decided to finish off what they had left. They combined caps of different potencies, maybe around 20 grams total. They thought they knew what to expect.
Famous last words sometimes, huh? Even with experience.
It often seems that way. So they reported the usual early stuff kicking in, feeling lighter, vision getting a bit hard to focus. But then things escalated fast.
How so?
Their vision turned into this rapid strobe effect. Then this really weird backward binoculars thing, like zooming in intensely on one still image. And this visual distortion just kept repeating, getting faster each time.
Wow. That sounds disorienting enough.
But that was just the start. That's when the existential terror really hit.
Okay.
The user described feeling like time itself was repeating, like they were trapped in this loop that would never, ever end. And then this sudden, just horrifying realization, I was in hell.
Hell, like fire and brimstone.
Not quite. Their description of hell was, it was the understanding that their entire life, everything they knew was just a false memory, a fabrication. And they were doomed to repeat it forever, always feeling it fresh. Always pointless.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And even though they identified as an atheist, they started screaming, oh my God, I'm in hell.
That's profound terror, the mind turning on itself.
It really is. It shows how the mind, when it's sort of untethered, can create these realities that are just absolute personal torment. And then the horror shifted again.
Shifted how?
It became maybe more believable, which somehow made it even more terrifying. They felt their consciousness float out, looking at the universe, but the universe was this giant vertical loop, like a roller coaster track.
Okay.
Each segment of the loop was a lifetime, their lifetime, repeating over and over, speeding up, then slowing down. And the worst part, they became convinced they were the only thing that truly existed. Everyone else, everything else was imaginary.
Utter cosmic loneliness.
Exactly. Condemned to relive these meaningless imaginary lives, always hitting this peak moment of realizing the awful truth and the terror before plunging back into ignorance to start again.
I can't even imagine.
The screaming became uncontrollable then. Things like, it goes on like this forever. It never stops. It goes on forever.
And this kind of internal chaos.
Yeah.
It must have spilled outward, right, into their actions.
Absolutely. That level of psychological torment rarely stays contained. Believing nothing mattered, no fear of death, seeing everyone else as just figments. They decided they had to go outside, try to break the loop somehow.
Okay, that sounds dangerous.
It was. The frustration got so bad, they actually threw a bookshelf across the room before they even managed to get out the door.
Jeez.
And once outside... Well, this is where the danger to self and others becomes really stark. They ran out yelling, "It doesn't matter, nothing matters," at cars driving by. They specifically remembered seeing the fear and confusion on one woman's face.
Oh, wow.
They thought they could fly. They wandered into a pond, like waist deep in water, stumbling around, shouting nonsense. And what's really chilling, they recalled this distinct urge. An urge to strangle someone.
Just because.
Just because I could. Was how they put it, because nothing mattered in that state.
That's terrifying. Did anyone intervene?
Astoundingly, no police showed up, which they later couldn't believe. They actually climbed onto someone's parked car at one point. And it was only then, sitting on top of this car, that a tiny bit of clarity came back. Like, oh, maybe I'm not actually in hell.
A crack in the delusion.
A tiny crack, enough to find their way home. And then they did something crucial. They called a friend.
Connection.
Yes. Just talking to someone familiar, someone real, that's what started to ground them. It took about 4 hours of talking them down. The main effects lasted maybe 12 hours total. But even now, they say the memory of their own screaming during that loop, it makes them just curl up into a fetal position.
Understandable.
They feel incredibly lucky they weren't arrested or hurt or didn't hurt someone. It really hammers home how vital a safe setting is, and ideally, having a trusted person there, a sitter.
Absolutely. The mind can become its own worst enemy under that kind of influence.
Yeah.
Generating terrors far worse than anything external.
Precisely.
Okay, so that first story was about this deep, existential looping hell. Our next account shifts focus a bit, right? More towards intense visual nightmares and physical torment.
Yeah, this one really highlights how the mind can turn the body itself into part of the nightmare. It's from a college student who decided to get a bit experimental and brew their own DMT.
DMT, often described as one of the most powerful psychedelics.
Extremely powerful. And brewing it adds another layer of unpredictability. They used Syrian Rue and Mimosa Hostilis. The Syrian Rue inhibits enzymes, which you need to make the DMT in the mimosa orally active.
So not exactly a standard procedure.
Definitely experimental, known for very intense effects. They describe the brew itself as looking like, well, piss yellow was their term.
Appetizing.
Not really. Anyway, after drinking it, things started subtly, light sensitivity. Then they said, it hit me like a flip of a switch.
Okay, what happened?
Their girlfriend's face just transformed. Translucent patterns, tribal markings appeared. Her irises started spinning. She became this spiritual shaman figure in their perception. Like she was introducing them to this new reality. The walls were breathing, classic psychedelic stuff, but amplified.
So their perception of reality just radically shifted.
Completely. Tried to use a computer, couldn't focus. Tried talking to the girlfriend, but she apparently gave up around 10:1 p.m. because the shaman kept coming back and they weren't making sense.
Right.
And then the physical side of the torment started, but it came from inside.
What do you mean?
They described this intense, horrible coldness, but it wasn't environmental. It was coming from within my soul, shaking violently like they were freezing, but the cold was internal.
That sounds awful. Psychological distress manifesting physically.
Exactly. Then they got sick, vomited bile, and then something truly bizarre happened. They saw a clump of saliva in the toilet bowl form into a lizard.
Lizard.
A lizard, watched it swim across the water, then just disappear into 1,000 particles. It shows how hallucinations can just permeate everything, even the most mundane, unpleasant bodily functions. Then they felt paralyzed, had to physically force themselves to move.
God. Paralysis and internal cold.
And it gets worse. They lay down terrified to sleep, thinking they might never wake up. And that's when this creature appeared. Not visually, but in their mind.
A creature.
They described it like a Tim Burton clay creature. 10 long legs, black and white stripes, green light coming from its orifices, looking bruised and sore, crawling unnaturally, laughing at them.
That's nightmare fuel right there. Pure psychological horror.
And the creature wasn't just there, it was showing them things. Visions of themselves becoming this schizophrenic zombie, a waste of society, losing all meaning. The users started questioning, will I ever be normal again?
The fear of permanent damage.
Absolutely. Combined with the paralysis, the cold, it was a full-blown ordeal. They tried to calm down later, watch a movie, but the darkness, the loneliness, the feeling the creature was still nearby, it all lingered.
Did the paralysis come back?
It did, later on. Couldn't even read the clock. Even their cat, Luna, apparently looked ashy and gray and freaked them out.
Wow. Just total perceptual distortion.
It finally started easing up around 3:18 a.m. They felt sanity return by 5 a.m., but still felt high even at 7:15 a.m. They called it the most intense trip ever, felt thing crazy, and they specifically warned against using Mimosa Hostilis.
So both that story and the Amanita one, they really highlight this terrifying loss of control, physically and mentally. Feeling trapped inside your own head, your body betraying you. It's not just seeing things, it's a full embodied crisis.
Exactly. Which brings us to another account, actually, where this mental looping led to physical catatonia.
Catatonia, like completely unresponsive.
Yeah. In this case, the user was actually having a pretty nice, clear-headed Amanita trip. Similar start to our first story, but then they decided to smoke salvia.
Oh, salvia. That has a reputation for being intense and weird.
Very intense, very dissociative. They took 2 deep hits from a bong, and within 5 seconds, they said their mind just raced out of control. The immediate thought was horrifying. This is never going to end.
The loop again.
A thought loop this time. Their mind got caught in a loop of thought, forcing them to think the same thing over and over and over. No control over body, no control over mind. They described it like a waking dream state, and it made them go completely catatonic.
How long did this last?
This is the staggering part. Their roommate found them just sitting on the couch, blank stare, totally unreachable. This was around 11:30 p.m. The roommate went to bed eventually. Woke up around noon the next day.
No.
Yes. The user was still there, eyes wide open, completely unresponsive, for about 20 hours.
20 hours. And they don't remember any of it.
No memory of that whole period. As they slowly started coming out of it, they felt terrified, like they were stuck between 2 realities, time moving differently.
That sounds incredibly disorienting.
They mentioned believing they'd figured out something very profound during that state, some simple truth, but couldn't grasp what it was, just described the feeling as hell. Sleep was impossible. 10 minutes felt like hours. It eventually took 8 Xanax pills, way more than usual, for them just to get to sleep.
Wow.
They felt mentally shattered, totally on the brink of insanity, said they realized their own mortality very quickly. It's a stark warning about mixing substances, right?
Yeah.
They felt the salvia was massively amplified by the Amanita, said nobody should have to go through that.
Definitely a cautionary tale about combinations. Now, our next story involves something different, absinthe. Usually associated with artistic types and maybe risky behavior, but not typically psychedelics.
Right. But it produced this terrifying loss of control for this user. They drank 500 milliliters of straight absinthe, admitted it was an extremely stupid idea, woke up later with cuts, bruises, and 0 memory after the first few shots.
Blackout drunk, but maybe more.
Seems like it. Friends filled them in later. Apparently their behavior changed dramatically. They made a complete fool of myself, shouting and swearing and wanting to fight a very large group of steroid abusers.
Whoa. Was that typical for them?
Not at all. They describe themselves as usually quiet. This was completely out of character, and it gets stranger.
How so?
Their mother found them outside their back door, trousers around their ankles, headbutting the door and cursing, then trying to make snow angels on wet grass in the pouring rain.
Oh my goodness. Total loss of inhibition and reality testing.
Complete loss. Their memory was still hazy afterwards, but they described the feeling as stronger than any acid, losing all control of my mind and body. Felt deeply ashamed afterwards, even brought up Van Gogh. It shows that a quote-unquote bad trip isn't exclusive to classic psychedelics. Any substance that profoundly alters consciousness can lead to these disturbing, dangerous breaks from normal behavior.
It's that profound dissociation.
Right.
And the uncharacteristic actions that pop up when that control is just gone.
Exactly. Which leads us to our final account. This one involves multiple substances and resulted in a really acute crisis, a true test of body and mind.
Okay, what was involved here?
This user started with cocaine but found it weak, so then they took ALAD.
ALAD. That's less common.
Yeah, it's an analog of LSD. Potent. They took 3 blots, which they estimated at 450 micrograms. That's a very substantial dose. And later they smoked weed on top of it.
Okay, so cocaine, a high dose of an LSD analog, and weed. Recipe for something intense.
Definitely. And the reaction was immediate and intensely physical. Severe stomach ache, like a knife stabbing, along with intense pressuring diarrhea.
Right, the body reacting strongly.
Very strongly. Anxiety spiked as their mind started to, as they put it, float away. They lost their grip on logic, on understanding the world, even time.
That sounds like the beginning of panic.
Full-blown panic. True panic, the terrified panic sets in, they wrote. They desperately wanted to call 911. Their boyfriend tried to calm them down, but in their state, they perceived him as a threat.
Oh, no.
They started screaming, "This is how I'm going to die." Believed he was trying to kill them. They broke away, ran into the apartment hallway yelling, "I need help," then started begging for someone to shoot them.
Begging to be shot.
Yeah, convinced they had gone insane. The hallway itself became part of the terror, fixated on the idea of infinity, losing time, convinced they died and were now trapped in this eternal hell made of repeating episodes.
That sounds like it escalated badly.
It did. It led to a physical confrontation. They ended up brawling with police officers who arrived. There was a brief moment of calm, apparently, seeing beautiful colors, but then they went crazy again in the ambulance. Still begging to be shot, thinking eternity was these inescapable episodes run by demons.
Demons.
That was their perception. And chillingly, they actually grabbed for a paramedic's gun at one point.
Good God. That's incredibly dangerous. What about the physical side? You mentioned the stomach issues.
It was critical. At the hospital, their heart rate was 210 beats per minute.
Whoa.
Yeah, extremely high. Blood flow to their organs was severely restricted. They were at risk of a heart attack, organ failure. Doctors had to pump them full of Valium to bring them down. The intense mind, as they called it, subsided after about 4 hours, but the visuals lasted for 12.
12 hours. That's a long time. Any lasting effects from that ordeal?
Sadly, yes. They believe they now have mild HPPD, hallucinogen persisting perception disorder.
What does that mean for them?
Colors are permanently brighter, light is more irritating, just persistent perceptual changes. And they also developed a specific, very bad phobia with long hallways.
Like PTSD.
Possibly. They get disoriented and anxious in long hallways now, likely linked back to that terrifying experience in the apartment building. They're understandably vowing never to take psychedelics again, or, if they ever did, only with Xanax readily available. It really underscores the potential for devastating long-term consequences, especially when mixing substances or taking high doses.
Absolutely. So pulling back from these individual stories.
Yeah.
What are the main threads? What can we, take away from these really intense accounts?
Well, first and foremost, I think, is the sheer unpredictability.
Right. Even for people with experience.
Exactly. Dosage misjudgments, mixing things up, just individual physiology and psychology. It all plays a huge, often unknowable role. What works one time can be terrifying the next.
And it's definitely not just all in your head, is it?
Not at all. That's maybe the second big takeaway. The body gets deeply involved. We heard about extreme heart rates, organ stress, intense pain, nausea, paralysis. These are real physiological responses. It can become a genuine medical emergency, far beyond just the mental anguish.
Yeah, the physical danger seems underestimated sometimes.
I think so. And thirdly, the importance of support. A sitter, a safe environment. Think about the first user brought back by a simple phone call to a friend. Or the last user desperately needing help even while perceiving their helper as a threat. Immediate, calm intervention can be absolutely crucial.
Having that anchor to reality seems vital when yours is dissolving.
Precisely. And finally, these experiences can leave lasting scars. They aren't always temporary.
Like the HPPD and the phobia we just heard about.
Exactly. HPPD, PTSD-like symptoms, fundamental shifts in how you see the world. Months, even years later. It reminds us the mind is resilient, yes, but it's also fragile. These journeys can leave a permanent mark.
So we've covered some really intense, terrifying territory here. Journeys into altered states that went profoundly wrong. We've seen these common threads, the psychological torment, the physical distress, the lasting impacts. It's a sobering look at the potential perils, isn't it?
It really is. These personal stories offer a perspective that's hard to grasp otherwise.
So for you listening, what stands out the most from all this? Is it the sheer terror described, the intense physical toll some people experienced, or maybe those lingering changes, the shifts in perception and mental health?
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It raises that big question. We have this natural curiosity, this drive to explore the edges of experience. But where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
Where does exploration tip over into risking potentially irreparable harm to our minds, our bodies? Something to reflect on.
Definitely food for thought. And if you found this deep dive compelling or maybe unsettling, please do consider engaging with our content, like, subscribe, share. Your feedback genuinely helps us keep bringing these kinds of unique explorations to you.